Okie dokie. Robin, should we start with, I feel like I've already done a bit of talking, even though this has just begun, but would you like to start with introducing yourself?
Yeah, good. Hello, everyone. Here in Tasmania, where I am, it's 6:30 in the evening. Not sure if you guys are all on different time zones, but I think Gary is for sure. My name is Robin Mundy, and I'm going to be joining Toby on the wonderful East Greenland voyage. I've been going to East Greenland almost every year since 2001. In fact, from the very first season that Polar Pioneer came into operation as a tourist vessel, I've worked on Polar Pioneer for 19 years, and so it's a vessel that's very close to my heart, and I've been guiding in both the Arctic and the Antarctic and a few other places like the Wild Islands of Scotland and the Norwegian coast. For all of this time. And I have to say that East Greenland is a pretty special place. So if any of you have already signed up with Toby, I'm really looking forward to traveling with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. And yeah, so for everyone else's benefit, my name's Toby Story. I own Southern Sea Ventures. I took it from Al Baker, who established the business back in the late 1980s. And I first worked in East Greenland with Robin in 2009. And it is a really, it is an incredibly special place. And obviously we're here to talk about the voyage, but we're doing there in August and September of this year. But we're both just very passionate about the location and really happy to talk about. It's a nice chance for us to catch up and talk a little bit about the place that we really have a great connection to. So I might just sort of flick through. As I said, Southern Sea Ventures was established in 1988, focused primarily on sea kayaking. Al Baker set it up and was the first company to run and operate sea kayaking trips in Antarctica, Hinchbrook Island, Fiji, and a range of other places around the world, both independently and in partnership with others. Since I took over the company, we've branched out into polar cruising as well. We saw that the Polar Pioneer had been refitted and refurbished and was ready to go back to the polar regions. I got very excited and jumped on board. So we're running 3 separate trips this year, one to Svalbard, which we talked about last week, one to Greenland, and also one to Antarctica, which we'll be having a bit of a chat about next week. But yeah, long history of operating in remote areas, particularly in the polar regions, with ships and yachts and kayaks and in coastal environments. These we can probably find on the website, so I won't dwell on them a little bit, but we are, as I mentioned, running other trips to the polar regions this year if any of the dates don't suit or they're booked or whatever. We're in Svalbard and also Greenland and Antarctica. So maybe get to the more interesting stuff. Where are we going to go? I'm just going to move this. We're covering over. I'm not sure if that's visible, but it's covering over the map. So if you can see my cursor here, we're going to start the voyage here in Iceland, in Akureyri, and be crossing the Denmark Strait over into Scoresby Sund and exploring Scoresby. We've got a wide range of places to go in there. Some of our favourite spots we'll talk a little bit about in more detail with some photos, but the little township of Ittukatumat is here on towards the mouth. We've got the Bear Islands are approximately here, Red Island further up here, Harefjord up in this direction, and then it's not really detailed enough for me to show you all of those places, but also we're hoping to get out and around the coast up into this other fjord system up here, King Oscar and Kaiser Franz Joseph Fjord. And that just depends on how we're tracking with sea ice, weather, etc. But within the time frame that we've got, we should be able to do that. So just tonight, Robin and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Greenland as a place, talk a little about the places that we're going to go, the different activities that we've got on offer, A little bit about some of the Inuit history or sites that are there. I talk about the landscapes, wildlife, the flora and fauna, as well as what you might expect in terms of weather and other types of climatic situations up there. Robin, is there anything you want to jump in on before I move to the next slide?
No, happy to keep motoring on, and I'll chip in when I'm ready.
No worries. So I guess for those that are not familiar with the Polar Pioneer, this is the ship that we're using to travel there. We both Robin and I are big advocates for the ship, of course. We spent, Robin much more than I, but plenty of time on board, and the experience that it affords as a 50-passenger ship is something really quite unique. It has the capability of a larger vessel, so you can see it can travel through ice. It's ice strengthened. It's not an icebreaker, but so it can't take you to the North Pole at this point. But it can make its way through relatively heavy ice and navigate, in areas that, say, a smaller yacht couldn't, or some of the smaller vessels. So it's got that capability of a larger vessel, but with only 50 people, up to 50 people on board, plus guides and crew, you tend to get quite intimate experience with the landscape and with each other, and in a sort of small group environment, as well as having more time on shore outside.
And Toby, I think that image, especially, well, both of them really, but it really shows a couple of things. And one is that the bow area, what a fantastic viewing platform that is. But for those who want a bit more elevation, you can see that there's a whole bunch of people up on the flying bridge. And that again, especially for the keen photographers, just that ability to look down on the ice at a particular angle is a really popular spot. But anywhere on that outside of that ship, whether you're, on the starboard or port side or back at the stern, they're all fantastic viewing areas. The one area that probably isn't as obvious in this photo is directly under the flying bridge. You can see a bank of quite large windows, and that's the working bridge where our officers navigate from. And one of the amazing things about the ship is that we as passengers are always welcome to be on that working bridge with the officers. Of course, being quite respectful of that's their working space, but it is also just another premium viewing area.
I might flick across as we've got some more photos of the interior. Excuse me, including one here of the bridge. So they've got that wonderful viewing platform. If the weather does get windy or rough or cold, you can still come in and have a really fantastic view. Excuse me. Just take a sip there. And I think, the ship is comfortable and it's lovely and it's been refurbished, but it's not a luxury vessel, but it's very, very comfortable. There's nothing uncomfortable about the ship, but the focus is really about the experience outside. So we like to talk about it like a 4-star accommodation with 5-star experience, because we can really bring people to the outside world, spend a lot of time out there viewing, looking for wildlife, doing activities, and just, soaking up the place. So that's sort of really what our focus is about, being outside and maximizing our experiences outside. The food is still, of course, excellent. 3-course meals. You can still get wine and beer, and there's still all of the modern comforts. There's a sauna because the new owners are Norwegian, so of course, and the bar has been redone, and the carpets are all new, and the plumbing, if anyone had been on the Polar Pioneer before, has been fixed. So some of those really basic things are well taken care of, but it's really about the opportunity to get outside that's the big attraction for us. Just in terms of the different activities that we offer, obviously we've got a kayaking program. That's very important to us. We love paddling in Greenland, which is the home of the sea kayak to some degree, or the Arctic is. Sea kayaking is a very popular activity. That's an additional surcharge to join the kayaking program, and it enables you to come and paddle on any time that we offer outings. And we visit the town of Itukatumat. It's a contemporary Inuit village or town, and it's one of very few on the east coast of Greenland. So it's incredibly unique and interesting. Obviously, Zodiac cruising is spending a lot of time exploring the ice, which is something quite marvelous and magical in Greenland, and just a wonderful way to see the landscape and get up close and personal.
And I think that photo of that iceberg with the Zodiac in front of it, Toby, it just starts to really introduce the scale of East Greenland. These big glacial bergs carve off the Greenland ice cap, hundreds of kilometers inland, right at the ends of these very long fjords, and they take months to sail down the fjord and make their way to the outer areas of the fjord. And in my experience, I've been going to Antarctica for 23 years now. These glacial bergs in East Greenland are the largest bergs in the world, and you can get a sense of that scale just from that Zodiac. So the point of saying that is just the Zodiac cruising, just to be amongst the ice is pretty spectacular.
And that photo, Robin, was taken at Red Island in the iceberg graveyard there, and I'm pretty sure it's Gary driving. And the other thing we offer as well is hiking. East Greenland is actually incredibly good for hiking. It's just wonderful open country. So there's lots of great hikes to do, from very easy shore ambles to more adventurous scrambling up peaks as well. Robin, I might let you talk a little bit about the flora and fauna, if you don't mind. I'm actually going to grab myself a glass of water.
No worries. I know you're getting over a bit of a cough there, Toby.
Yeah, just give me 1 second, but you go ahead, please.
Yeah, so there's 3 images there that speak to both the wildlife and the flora. And on the left, you can see a group of animals, and that is a family of muskox. And that's one of the things you don't see on Svalbard, which is the Arctic area north of Norway. But it is a really special feature of an East Greenland trip. And we often will see families or sometimes quite big herds of muskox, including small calves. And Toby showed you a photo of the little township of Itokatomi, and that has around about 50 licensed hunters, and they're actually given a quota. They're allowed to take so many muskox a year, but one of the reasons that they do take muskox, as well as using the meat to eat for themselves, is that underneath the guard hair of the muskox, they've got this incredibly fine wool called kiviot. I know some of you will have heard of it, but it's the finest wool in the world. And often when you're walking through the tundra, you'll just see little kind of tufts of kiviot that have been snagged on a small branch. And so the muskox experience is quite special. And in the middle there, we've got, I don't know what species of whale is other than it's large. It might be a sei or a fin whale, but on the crossing between Iceland and Northeast Greenland, we do encounter sei whales, and sometimes in the outer reaches of the fjord. And I reckon that photo was probably taken at about 11 o'clock or midnight. So you've just got these beautiful, pastel sunset colors that we enjoy. And then on the right is just a little, what's called a harebell. And it's just one of the many flowers that we see in the tundra. I mean, the left-hand photo shows you the tundra, but it's not until you get right up close, pretty much on your hands and knees, that you just get to see the diversity of flora. And August is just a lovely time when all of these wildflowers are in full bloom.
Just to add in, Robin, the whale is actually a blue whale.
Whoa.
And I've spotted this. Gary, Robin's partner, came and knocked on my door. It was late and I was just tidying up some paperwork or photos or something, and Gary comes running past, knocking on, there's a blue whale, there's a blue whale. So I ran outside and managed to see a blue whale with a calf traveling past the ice edge, just to the east of Greenland. Yeah, so very special experience. So I guess it's hard to go past the diversity and uniqueness of the ice in Greenland, and I think Robin already indicated, the size is really something, but it's also the different shapes that they form. And these three, the one on the left hand side is from the Bear Islands, which is a grouping of islands which it's just an amazing place to explore, but has a little iceberg graveyard where the icebergs get wedged, and you can weave your way through there, and there's always something with an incredible shape in there. And then the one in the middle is shot up at Red Island, as is the one on the right, which is probably one of my all-time favorite places to explore, and always has really incredibly different, a wide variety of icebergs in different states of decay throughout the surroundings.
For Australians especially, going to Red Island, which is that middle photo, you can actually see the island. And even this is in the Scoresbysund Fjord, and even further up, a place called Hare Fjord, which we're hoping to go to. You've got this Devonian sandstone, this really red coloured soft rock. And for Australians, you just look at this disconnect between what really looks like outback Australia, Uluru and the Olgas and so on. And then you've got this great iceberg sitting in front of it. So it's a strange experience to see some of these landscapes.
Mm. Speaking of landscapes, that's a good segue, Robin. The top left corner there is shot in the Bear Islands, which is a big collection of very wonderful peaks, maybe 100 islands and islets all throughout this lovely area, which is just, we'll often end up spending an entire day exploring there.
Yeah, just move to the right side.
And then the one in the bottom left is Red Island. There's a sort of late in the afternoon experience that we had there, and you can see how rich that red really is. And then this one on the right hand side, I think it's Robin's going to talk more about this, I'm sure. I can tell, I can see it. But Gateau Point, or Cake Point, because of the wonderful layering in sandstone.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not a geologist, and I'm not even going to venture there, but if you lined up Polar Pioneer against that background of striated sandstone and mudstone and siltstone, it would just be a tiny speck at the bottom. Such is the scale. And so we love to land at this place, and you can see in the foreground you've got that same layering of different sedimentary rock. And it's probably one of my favorite walks because it's got a mix of beautiful wildflowers and a little bit of elevation, and just being able to, walk around this incredible geology and then look across the fjord at these massive cliffs. It really is an incredible experience.
Even as a kayaker, I have to go ashore at Gateau Point. I have to. It's really, it's really quite marvelous. I'm not sure if Robin did speak about it at all, but you probably noticed all of these photos. In all of these photos, the water is flat. It's flat, calm, and that's, from my experience, incredibly common in Greenland, and surprisingly so, especially at the time of year that we're visiting, late in the season, where it's relatively stable. So yeah, it's not just that we only take photos when it's nice, it's that actually it is inside the fjord systems, it is incredibly nice a lot of the time, and often quite sunny. Chilly, of course, there's a lot of ice. You can see little bits of ice cap up here in the distance, but you're in a rocky environment with ice, surrounded by ice, up high and in the water, but it's very much a sort of an approachable landscape and can be quite warm in the summer months. Perhaps the crossing of the Denmark Strait is where you can expect a real ocean experience. Not all the time, and most of the time, for me, it's been quite nice. But you are squeezing a lot of water into a small body, into a narrow passage there, with currents coming from both directions, from the north and the south, and occasionally strong storms. So it can get rough on that crossing, but generally, as soon as you're inside the fjords, where you spend the vast majority of the time, it's actually incredibly nice. And I think that's something that often surprises people when they visit Greenland, especially if they've been to another polar region where you're a long way up north. But it's really quite lovely. I just wanted to throw these in there just because particularly something that, particularly for the time of year that we're planning to visit, we will have some darkness, and it's entirely possible that we would have aurora borealis. And the photo on the left there was one that I took on that first voyage that I did with Robin, or first season I was up there on the bow of the Polar Pioneer. We had 3 or 4 nights in a row where we had the aurora, and the first night everybody got up and was excited and spent half the night up looking at it, and the next night at least 2/3 of the ship got up, was very excited and looking at it for at least a couple of hours. The third night, about 1/3 of the ship got up and checked it out for an hour, and the fourth night, I think about 5 people got up and had a quick look before they went back to bed. But it is possible that we would see auroras at that time of year, so that's a nice little treat. And the other thing that I haven't seen in other places in such great detail or to such an extent is the mirages, or Fata Morgana. And sometimes the whole landscape will invert, and you'll have mountains, inverted, pointing downwards to mountains pointing up, and it's quite remarkable. So it's a really a magic place. There's something about it that's very otherworldly, but also very familiar, especially when you're traveling around and you can see remnants of people who've been living there for a long, long time. It is a sort of a human landscape in that sense. It's approachable for people. It's a place where people could live, and you can sort of maybe imagine yourself living there. But it's also incredibly otherworldly as well, especially for us Australians who are not used to so much ice. So I always like to sort of talk a little bit about, the suitability of the trip. It's really for people who like to be outside, who enjoy experiencing places as much as possible. You don't have to be ultra fit. We always are able to offer a variety of activities within the walking and the kayaking. And so when we go ashore, for example, there'll be a sort of an ambling group who may be exploring all of the lovely flowers that are right next to the shore. And then you may have some others who are looking to scale a peak nearby, or without crampons or ice axes or ropes, but very adventurous walkers, and others who are somewhere in between. So, and some people may choose not to come on every outing and spend part of their afternoon relaxing on board. That's entirely possible as well, and it's very comfortable. But yeah, the main criteria is that you've got an adventurous spirit and are open to changes, as we expect with the weather and the ice and opportunities as they arise. So
I'm usually the guide that puts my hand up to do the ambling walk, because I just love, I just love doing the gentle walks and having time to really be in amongst the tundra and be looking at birds and you know, for me, I really enjoy that part while all the mountain goats are, you know, up in the higher reaches.
I think that's kind of all we've got in terms of the information we wanted to provide, but we're happy to answer questions, of course. So we might open the room up and we can, if anyone wants to turn on their microphone or speaker or video, please go ahead, or we'd just like to message in the chat, either however you'd like to do it.
Oh,
Are you still recording, Toby?
I will
And
end the recording.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Toby, can you hear me?
Certainly can.
Oh, right.